The wind howled through the empty bones of the forgotten town, carrying with it the bitter taste of dust and memory. As the sun dipped behind the jagged hills, a lone figure appeared on the horizon, riding slow, steady, like death itself had an appointment to keep. His hat low, his coat long and sun-faded, and his eyes, sharp, steel-gray, scanned the desolate remnants of what used to be called Red Rock. Clint Eastwood's boots hit the cracked wooden floor of the saloon porch with a hollow echo. The swinging doors creaked open, as if they remembered him. Inside, silence. Broken glass, overturned stools, blood dried so dark it had nearly become part of the wood. He said nothing. He never did when words were useless. On the bar, a newspaper dated August 14th, 1905, yellow and brittle, with a headline that read, "Gold found in Red Rock. Mayor claims fortune safe." Clint picked it up and scanned it like a man flipping through an old obituary. The real story wasn't printed in ink. It was smeared in blood across every wall, etched in bullet holes, buried somewhere under this cursed dust. He wasn't here by accident. He'd followed whispers, ghost stories, and an old photograph of a town that vanished one night, along with every soul inside it. What remained was a graveyard of secrets, and he had come to dig them up. Clint Eastwood walked down the main street of Red Rock, his spurs clinking with every step, the sound sharp against the silence of a town that had forgotten how to breathe. Dust clouds swirled like spirits disturbed by his presence. The buildings stood like decaying tombstones, the general store boarded up, the sheriff's office sagging with time, and a half-burned church at the far end, its bell long gone. It was a place swallowed whole by time, and by something darker. He stopped outside what used to be the Red Rock Bank. Its sign hung by a single nail, creaking like a rope in a hangman's yard. With one push, the saloon-style doors opened into shadows. The air inside was still, but not empty. Clint's eyes scanned the room. Bullet holes riddled the walls, dried blood stained the floor, and in the corner lay something half-buried beneath rotting planks, an old leather satchel. Inside it were faded ledger papers and a pocket watch engraved with the initials J.D.C. Clint turned the watch over in his palm slowly, the same initials from the photograph he carried in his inner coat pocket. A face, 20 years younger, smiling. A man who once rode beside him, before betrayal turned friends into graves. He pocketed the watch and lit a cigar, the ember briefly casting light on the ghost of his reflection in the broken window. Behind him, in the cracked glass, he saw the shadow of a man, watching. Clint turned quick, hand on his revolver, but the alley was empty. Only wind, or maybe something else. He knew now. He wasn't just digging up secrets. He was being watched by them. Night fell like a curtain over Red Rock, and with it came the cold. Not the kind that bit the skin, the kind that crawled under it. Clint Eastwood sat by a fire he built behind the saloon, his revolver on his lap, his eyes scanning every creaking sound like a man who danced with death too many times to be surprised by it. That's when he heard it, the sharp, metallic click of a hammer being cocked. He turned his head slowly. A man stood in the shadows near the stables, face hidden by the brim of a dusty brown hat, badge rusted on his chest. "Ain't no law left in Red Rock," Clint said calmly. The man stepped forward, revealing a ghost of the past, Sheriff Caleb Vane, a legend once. Now a nightmare. But something was wrong. His eyes were hollow, as if time had hollowed him out. "You shouldn't have come back," the sheriff rasped, voice like dead leaves scraping over stone. Clint stood slowly. Didn't come back. just never got to finish what was started. Sheriff Vane moved like a shadow and vanished before Clint could draw. But on the stable wall, burned into the wood, were 5 names, one already crossed out, and 4 more still waiting. At the top of the list was Clint Eastwood's own name, scrawled in blackened soot. Clint narrowed his eyes, and in that moment he remembered it all: the gold robbery, the double cross, the massacre, the 5 men who made a deal with the devil and left him for dead in the canyon. 20 years ago, they thought they buried him. Now he was back, and the dust would taste blood before dawn. The wind was no longer silent. It whispered names now, names that Clint Eastwood had etched into his memory for 2 decades. Names of men who wore fake smiles, shook hands like brothers, and then left him bleeding beneath a pile of dynamite and rocks when greed took the wheel. The first name on the list after his own was Eli Boone, once the town's blacksmith, now the self-proclaimed leader of a traveling gang that passed through ghost towns and stole from the dead. Clint found him just outside of town, in a crumbling barn lit by moonlight and malice. Boone was drunk, laughing with 2 men beside a wagon loaded with stolen rifles. The laughter died when the barn door creaked open, revealing a silhouette cloaked in dust and revenge. Clint didn't speak. He never did when justice had already spoken in his eyes. 3 shots echoed through the night. Precise. Final. The 2 men dropped before they could draw, and Boone, trembling, backed against the wall like a rat cornered by a lion. "You were supposed to die in that canyon," Boone muttered. Clint raised his revolver, eyes cold as steel. "You should have made sure." The 4th shot ended Boone's chapter. By dawn, Clint rode through Red Rock with 4 bullets left and 3 names to go. The town didn't sleep, not because of life, but because vengeance had returned to haunt its bones. He stopped in front of the old church, now nothing more than blackened timber and ashes. In its ruins, he placed Boone's bloodied hat on a broken cross. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was reckoning. The final showdown began as the sun rose over Red Rock, casting long, ghostly shadows across the graveyard that once passed for a town square. Clint Eastwood stood alone, boots rooted in the dust of old sins, his revolver holstered but heavy. 5 bullets had come and gone, and now only 1 remained. Across from him stood the last man on the list, Darius Cole, the banker who planned the betrayal, paid for the ambush, and vanished with the stolen gold like a rattlesnake into the rocks. He was older now, fatter, draped in a long coat that hid fear behind polished buttons. But fear couldn't hide from a man like Clint. "I buried you with your past," Darius spat. "No," Clint said, voice low and final. "You buried yourself. I just came back to collect." Around them, the ghost town held its breath. Windows, once shattered by gunfire, now framed the moment like an audience of the dead. Darius drew first, but too slow, too desperate. Clint's hand moved like thunder, the final shot ringing out like judgment. Darius fell, eyes wide, grasping at air like it could save him from justice. Clint walked over, stood above him, and stared into the eyes of a man who had lived too long on borrowed time. "I told you 20 years ago," Clint whispered. "You can't kill what's already dead." Then he turned, his silhouette framed by the rising sun, Mustang keys in his hand, and blood in the dust beneath his boots. The town of Red Rock would remain silent, a forgotten grave for 5 men who made the wrong enemy. Clint Eastwood didn't just bring revenge. He brought memory, justice, and a ghost's wrath, 1 bullet at a time.